Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, our guest is Megan Gilhooly. As a VP Customer Experience at Zoom Software, Megan has made it her mission to change how organizations think about product content. Prior to this role, Megan spent 2 decades managing content teams, driving content strategy and delivering stellar information experiences at companies like Amazon, Ping, Identity, and InVD Technologies. Her experience includes content for support, sales, product, and marketing. As a former online retail business owner and certified Scrum Master, Megan brings a unique perspective to managing information development and content strategy. She has a BA in speech communication, a MS in journalism, an MS in strategic management, and a master's certificate in technical communication. So plug your earphones in, sit back, and let's jump right into this conversation with Megan. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you, Yannick. Very happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us today. Could you share, Megan, with us a little bit about your journey, how it is that you got to where you are today?
Absolutely. I have always been in content of one form or another. I started my career in journalism and then very quickly moved into technical communications. So when I really was at the beginning of my career, I spent a lot of time writing very large books that told people how to use technical software or other technical products. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of grown up through there. I have gone back and forth with some marketing. I call myself a bit of a closet marketer because I was never fully in marketing, but I always did marketing. And but the one thing that I really recognized throughout my entire career is that product content really is the best source of marketing for customers. Customers need to have content that's useful, content that's understandable. They don't like marketing fluff. So the marketing fluff of the 80s won't pass today. And so I have come into sort of this marketing world in that way. I actually implemented Zoom Software twice in my career. And so after I went to Amazon for a little bit and led global content teams there, I was looking for a new and exciting challenge. And Zoom was growing. And so I actually came on board as the VP of Customer Experience here at Zoom because I know the product, I know the industry, and I am very quickly learning the role of a VP of Customer Experience.
All right. So you spoke a lot about product content. Content, that is such a powerful word. It encapsulates so many different things. Just thinking about my phone and the amount of information that it pushes out daily, how do you know what content is going to capture the persons that you are trying to get their attention? Because what is going to make me stop, I was watching this LinkedIn video a few months ago, and the young lady on it has this thing called a scroll stopper or a thumb stopper. I don't remember what was the actual ring line that she had to it. But basically, what's going to make me stop on your post or your video or your content to partake in whatever it is that you're sharing? There's just so much information you're bombarded with daily from all the different social media platforms plus emails that people are sending you. I mean, how do you navigate through that? What would you recommend?
Right. So it's a really good question. I would see technical product content being a little lower in the funnel. It might not be the first thing you send to a customer. Instead, it's a place you send prospects to do their own homework. So if you think about the way that people buy today, people don't buy because a salesperson calls them necessarily. Certainly the salesperson is very important in the process. But a lot of times, these prospects will do 80% of their homework before even contacting the sales team, right? And so the product content is the stuff they'll look at to see how your product works exactly, what it is compatible with, They might look up what your support org does to support the product, how well you can self-serve. And if they feel like they can self-serve by getting their answers immediately, then they're going to have a better experience and a better impression of your company. So I think product content really does come a little further down the funnel. But I will say that one of the companies that I used to work with, they brought on Zoom in, and after I left, I heard from somebody who was at the company that the CEO actually said product content is the new marketing. And I think that's such a powerful phrase because it really is. Marketers are trying to create useful information that will engage customers. And you know what? It really comes down to they want to know what your product does. So that's where I think it falls into marketing.
All right. Tell us a little bit about how it is you see marketing and customer experience playing a more supportive role for each other. Because over the years, marketing has always been a separate part of an organization than customer experience or customer service. As a matter of fact, I think maybe it's probably in the last 10 years that you actually have organizations segmenting customer service and customer experience because they realize the importance of it. As we move forward, especially coming out of this pandemic, how is it that you think organizations can really marry those two departments together in a very symbiotic way? Because at the end of the day, yes, marketing is to get the customer, but at the same time, all organizations want customer retention and loyalty. And that can only happen after the marketing is done. And as you mentioned, is there support? Can you get in touch with them? How easy is it to do business with them? How can we really put those two together to support each other in the best way possible?
Right. They are so inextricably tied. If you think about the way I think about customer experience is it really is kind of a subset of marketing as well as a subset of customer success and sort of overarches both of those two things. Now, when you think about SaaS platforms today, we don't have the luxury of, they bought and installed the product, so it's sticky on its own, right? Our customers can leave at any time. So it behooves the customer success team to ensure that we're getting really good retention, that we're providing the experience that the customers need in order to have them upsell and cross-sell and expand into our other offerings. So that's all very, very important from a revenue standpoint. Mm-hmm. At the same time, if our customers have amazing customer experiences, that makes it a lot easier for marketing to get case studies, to work with the customer success team and their customers on advocacy and things that will help marketers to more effectively market to prospects. So I think there's such a big tie today that really customer experience is all about making decisions with the customer first and foremost. So rather than leading by project or leading by product or leading by sales or leading by anything else, you really have to lead with the customer in the forefront, and then everything sort of falls out from that.
Mm-hmm. All right. So there are a few organizations that take that approach. Netflix is definitely one of them, and so is Amazon. If you are a company and you wanted to, let's say, replicate the Netflix experience, right? Provide a high level of personalization. I'm fascinated each time I go on Netflix. Now they've found a way to tell you the top 10 movies that are being watched per country. They've broken it down to geographic, favoritism. And of course, automatically you look at those top 10 and you'll probably end up picking something because you're saying, hey, well, if this is number one in Jamaica or this is number one in the US, maybe it's worth watching. How do you, I know it's purely data driven because it's clearly, the numbers that they're watching and able to put this out to us. But how can other organizations utilize this model in their own businesses?
That's a really interesting point. The Netflix experience is really impacting everybody. So if we think about the consumerization of content, Netflix is one of one of the big drivers of that, right? We as professionals eventually go home at the end of the day and we sit down in front of the TV and we open up Netflix, and Netflix hands us exactly what we want to watch without us even really knowing ahead of time what we want to watch. It's just served up to us.
Mm-hmm.
So then we go to work the next day, and whether we work in B2B or B2C, we expect that all of our tools that our vendors are selling to us are going to serve up answers in a very similar way.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something where the consumer world is way ahead of the B2B world, but the expectations from customers are there. So I'll give you a really good example. When I want to buy runners, so tennis shoes, whatever you want to call them,
Mm-hmm.
I want to buy athletic shoes. I always now go with Brooks shoes. And Brooks shoes was not always my favorite. I always had a different favorite until I got the app for Brooks shoes. And the coolest thing about it is it's content, but it steps you through a process within the content that explains how you need to choose your shoes, but it doesn't give you a bunch of technical jargon. So for example, it doesn't say, do you pronate or supinate? It says, take your shoes off, stand with your feet parallel, and look down and see where your toes are pointing. And then it shows you a picture of one with the toes pointed out and one with them pointed in and one with them neutral. And then you pick the one that matches what you see. And so it's very, very easy. Now, if you want the scientific reasoning behind it, you can click a link and you can get to it. So that's great. But it makes it so easy to figure out what type of shoe, what type of Brooks shoe I need, that I have become a loyal Brooks user to the point where I have 4 children. My children now wear Brooks shoes and I pay money for them, but it's easy for me to say, okay, let's go through this little checkbox and go through it and figure out which shoes are best for you.
Right.
So that's the experience that I have as a consumer that has made me a loyal Brooks shoes fan. Now, at the end of the day, I'm not here to sell Brooks shoes. I don't care if people go to Brooks shoes or not, but it's just such a compelling example of where content really drove my loyalty. And now when I go to work, I have similar expectations of vendors when I'm trying to get answers, when I'm trying to self-serve, when I'm trying to figure out what the best overall experience is for me. I keep that in mind. And so it's Netflix, it's Brooks Shoes, it's Amazon, it's all of these consumer products are really driving the expectations that our customers have for us in the B2B world.
Agreed. I totally agree. I talk about that all the time, that customers' expectations are based on 4 things. They're based on what we communicate to them. They're based on past experiences they've had with you. They're based on experiences that you've had with other companies that are not similar to them. So as you mentioned, you're comparing, let's say, for example, how your supermarket app is interfacing with you versus your Brooks app, which is 2 different, companies, 2 different set of commodities. But the reality is that's what people look at. They're thinking to themselves, well, if they can do it in this space with a product that's a little bit more complicated, why can't they do it with something like this? I sit and wonder that to myself all the time. So I do agree with you that what we experience out there, even if it's not similar to what we're comparing it to, does drive our expectation of that product or service.
Absolutely.
All right. So Megan, could you share with us what's the one online tool, resource, website, or app that you absolutely can't live without in your business?
Yeah, I think this is probably the same answer you get from almost everyone. But Slack, we could not do our business without Slack, especially in this digital world. So that's a big one for us, certainly. And there are probably some others, in our marketing world, we couldn't do without HubSpot. But, ultimately, there's other tools that do that. Nothing really quite does what Slack does in the way that Slack does it.
Mm-hmm. All right, very good. Could you share with us also maybe 1 or 2 books that have had the biggest impact on you? It could be a book that you read recently, or maybe a book you read a very long time ago, but it still has is having a great impact on you?
Yes. So I have to admit that because I work full time, we've been crazy busy throughout the pandemic, and I have 4 kids at home. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't read a lot this year, but the one book I did read, which is a must read for any company that is going through hyper growth, is called No Dumbing Down, and it's written by a woman by the name of Karen Walker. Now, I know Karen personally. She's done some work with some of my teams, but she started her career. I shouldn't say started her career. Back in the day, back in, let's say, the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
when Compaq was going through its hyper growth phase, she started at Compaq as the 100th employee. She left, I think it's around 15 years later, when they had 17,000 employees. She saw the growth in revenue from zero up to $15 billion.
Wow.
So I might have some of those numbers slightly wrong, but basically she has a very, very impressive view of what it means to be in hyper growth and how to do that successfully. They were the fastest growing company in America to date. And so her book, No Dumbing Down, really talks about, it provides 5 internal strategies for sort of succeeding through hypergrowth. And then it also talks about how do you drive those strategies throughout all the levels of the organization.
Hmm.
Really, really powerful.
All right, sounds good. So we will have a link to that book in the show notes of this episode for all of our listeners that would like to tap into that great resource. Megan, could you share with us what's one thing that's going on in your life right now that you're really excited about? Either something that you're working on to develop yourself or your people.
Yes. As I mentioned, we're going through a tremendous amount of growth here. So we're doing all kinds of things in order to support that growth. And it's fun to see all of the things that are going on. So from hiring and ramping people up quickly to trying to ensure that we're setting the right strategies so that everyone has the North Star that they need to shoot for, to fixing processes. Those are all really, really big, exciting projects right now. So I think if I were to pick, there's just so many, but one in particular actually starting this week is we're building a customer success playbook. And I think that's a very important thing that we sort of have pieces of right now, but we haven't yet taken the opportunity to sit down and really flesh it out. And so starting this week, we have a project where we're starting to work on that. We have some really cool marketing initiatives that are going on that are keeping us incredibly busy. So we've got a ton, but I think that playbook is one that I'm most excited about because it will really help to solidify what do we expect of the customer experience, and then how do our customer success managers actually operate in order to get us to that ideal.
All right, sounds good. So, our listeners would have tapped in and listened to this podcast, and they're very intrigued about what Zoomin is doing, also about your own journey, and they would like to connect with you further. How and where can they find you online?
Sure. They can find me on LinkedIn, Megan Gilhooly, on Twitter at Megan Gilhooly. They can email me at megan.gilhooly@zoominsoftware.com. I also send out a Friday email where I collate a bunch of different contents. Your podcast may show up on it one time. And so that is at the Zoomin website. So if you go to zoominsoftware.com and then you go to the resources page, there'll be a place where you can sign up for that. And it's kind of it's not really marketing. It's very much, what's going on in my brain this week and what's going on. Oftentimes I tell silly stories about my kids or funny stories about my husband. So I bring a lot of personal things into it. It's very short. And then I bring in relevant content because I do read a lot of content, even though I'm not reading books. I spend a lot of time reading really rich and great content. So I like to send out the best of that so that other folks don't have to wade through all the bad to get to the good, the little nuggets of wisdom.
That's nice. That's nice. And the reality is, I think that's how most people consume content now. They just there's just not enough time in the day to really sit down and take on long pieces of information. So when you can get them in bits and pieces, it makes, I find, at least for me, it makes the learning experience that much better. I recently joined TikTok because of my daughter's influence. And I don't know, I
Oh,
used to think it was an application that people go on to waste time. But I actually have learned quite a few things on it that are quite, like different tips and tricks in terms of the iPhone. Maybe there are features on the phone that I wasn't familiar with, or tips and tricks in Microsoft Excel with different tools that can help me to be a better, to analyze the data better. And I was like, and it's short. It doesn't, it's not a YouTube video that's like 20 minutes and I'm like, shoot, I don't have 20 minutes to watch this video. It's just like a 2-minute video
right.
and you're like, oh, I got it. And you save it to your phone and, you have it as a reference point. And I thought it was
Yeah,
brilliant. I underestimated TikTok.
that's interesting. I tried to get on TikTok a couple times and I failed. So I'm going to try again. Now that you
What do
mentioned it.
you mean you failed?
I think I thought I was somebody I wasn't because it kept serving up the wrong content, but I think it's because I just didn't give it enough time to learn who I was
Right,
because
right.
I heard that it can be very, very good. But it really thought I was a teenager that just wanted to do dances. So I'll try it again.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
Because you're very correct. Because what I noticed as I started using it was it started to pick up on content that I was interested in, and then it started to push more of that and less of the garbage that
Yeah.
was there originally when I just started.
Yeah. And there's such an alignment there with how I talk about product content, right? Like when we serve up content, when our customers serve up content to their customers, we expect that it will serve up the content that's related to the version that they want to be on, that's related to their role in their organization. We don't want it to just throw content out there. And so TikTok really, there's kind of this I don't know, this mirror image between TikTok and the product content that we deliver. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, you should do some research on it. As I said, I was deeply fascinated because my daughter uses it constantly. She's a teenager. She's 15. That's
Yeah.
her favorite go-to application. And I was, even though clearly we're clearly not watching the same types of videos, but I got value out of it.
That's awesome. I'm going to check it out. Very
Now, Megan, before we wrap our interview up, could you share with us maybe a quote or a saying that during times of adversity or challenge, you'll tend to revert to this quote because it will help to refocus you or get you back on track if for whatever reason you feel demotivated or derailed?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, whenever I get off track or I feel like, people in general are getting off track, I go back to very customer focused quotes. And so there's one by Mark Benioff from Salesforce who said, and I may get part of this wrong, but you need to get to the future ahead of your customer and be ready to greet them when they arrive. And I think that's so powerful to think, especially during difficult times. So let's say even through the pandemic, when you think about the organizations that just sort of sat back and said, oh, we can't do that because of the pandemic, or oh, we're going to change our hours because of the pandemic. Those are organizations that have now a really frustrating customer experience. But for the companies that actually said, okay, we're in a pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
but at some point we're going to get through this pandemic. Now, where do we need to be? And are we going to be prepared to be ready no matter where we are along the path of this pandemic? Those are the companies that have maintained a really positive customer experience. So that's a quote that I often look at. I have it posted on my wall.
Nice, very nice. So we'll definitely have that quote in the show notes of this episode. Thank you for sharing, Megan. Well,
You bet.
Megan, thank you so much for jumping on today and chatting with us, sharing all of these great nuggets as it relates to product content and personalization and really understanding the relationship between marketing and customer experience, and also embracing the ability and the fact that we can all grow and develop in our organizations, and we can help our customers to navigate and get the best products that suit their individual needs once we're really looking in the right places, and of course executing it in the best way possible to ensure that the content will lead them to the results that they're searching for. So thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks so much for having me. It was fun.
So just wanted to remind our listeners, you can hop onto Facebook and join our private Facebook group at Navigating the Customer Experience Community, and feel free to follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant. We also have a new book available on Amazon, The ABCs of a Fantastic Customer Experience. It's available in ebook and paperback. So if you want to increase revenue in your organization, build a stronger service culture, and create employees or develop employees who are really mastering service delivery in your business, you need to grab a copy of this book. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.